Your road map will lead you to Halls, Tennessee, but your journey really begins beyond the door of Murray Hudson's antiquarian books and maps.
I consider myself a conservationist or preservationist. I hate to see things that are valuable, you know, like the oldest oak tree in the community. I hate for anybody to destroy that for no reason at all, you know. And anything like this which might provide people generations from now with a kind of a tangible view of what things were like now and things I've collected 200 or 300 years older. It tells you a lot about what the way people thought. Each period of map making shows a different mindset, a different focus, and so on. Going from artistic to French were incredibly scientific in the 18th century, and they did the best mapping at that time. Then the Americans took it up, British, and then the Americans took it up, and became even more precise about it, and more utilitarian and less interested in the aesthetics of it.
Our camera gives you just a glimpse of the more than 25,000 maps, globes, prints, and books which fill nearly every square inch of the shop. Now possessing one of the largest 19th century map collections by an individual, Murray began this pursuit with a little souvenir shopping.
I was going to school in England for a summer course right after I graduated from the University of Arizona, and I went to Oxford in England. And at the end of the course, I had been looking for things that were portable and inexpensive and attractive and old, you know, to take back. And I'd have been passing this shop called Saunders on the High every day, and I looked in the window and always liked what I saw. And I went in there shortly before leaving, and instead of prints, they had maps that were much larger, and all these maps were much better looking than the little prints I had intended on buying, which were, you know, castles and cathedrals and fields and so on. So I ended up buying 50 maps, antique maps, the first time I ever bought any maps, for $80. And within about 10 years of that, less than 10 years of that time, I had an English dealer offer me the equivalent of a round-trip ticket to England and back for one half of one of those maps. So at that time I was a stockbroker and the market was really bad, and I looked at these maps and saw how they'd gone up 20, 30, 50 times in 10 years, and the stocks had gone south, and I said, I wish I'd had more money to buy.
Murray spent time as a teacher, stockbroker, and farmer, but the maps kept calling his name, and eventually the hobby became a business his wife finally banished from the house.
She said, you're covering every flat area in the house, including the dining room table. And she said, you'll be much happier, she'd be much happier, if you find a shop.
The shop is the old Halls post office, and like its new contents, the building had a history.
People kept dropping in letters in the drop slots for like 5 years, and every once in a while we'd go take them to the post office, so we covered them up.
This old post office is now the home to more than 23,000 maps, 800 globes, and several thousand books, historical prints, and wall maps. And a visit with Murray uncovers almost as many facts, figures, and stories. This map, it said it was done before the Civil War because it's done in the North, and this is published in about 1863 in the middle of the Civil War when the one place that the Yankees were winning was on the Mississippi River. And so they were really interested in these maps, and this shows all the fortifications they added and its fortification. It was originally panorama of the Mississippi Valley, but now it shows all the forts along the river, including Fort Pillow down here, which they have named as another fort. It changed names, and I think there are 4 of them between that and Fort Pickering down on the last bluff in Memphis. But this, it's really nice. It's a strip map that goes from St. Louis to the mouth of the Ohio, then from there through Memphis down to Greenville, Mississippi, through Vicksburg down to Natchez, and then all the way to the Gulf. And it shows, you know, a steamboat could use this for deciding, you know, where to stop and where to get wood, and anybody traveling could use it because it shows the railroads where they come to the river, like at Memphis. It's a really attractive map to me too. It's one of the earlier ones that was printed in different colors. Of particular interest to Murray are the southeast and southwest regions of the United States, and there are many pieces from the Civil War period.
But it was done right in the middle of 1864, and you know, obviously, so somebody could use this during the war, I would think, because it's so detailed of the areas, particularly of the railroads, and tells you, well, it has main stage roads, the finished railroads, proposed railroads, villages and post offices, canals, and then it has the little trails. So it was showed how you could get around anywhere in the South during the Civil War.
Before you realize it, you've had a history lesson. You've also gotten a glimpse at how past generations lived and how they viewed a very different world.
This has the Sandwich Islands, and then it shows the brig Thaddeus, the first missionary vessel to the Sandwich Islands, and how long it took, 163 days from Boston, and it landed on April 4th, 1820. And this is in 1849, it was when these two hemisphere maps were published, and it has the gold region in California, the same year that the 49ers were going there. It also is a missionary map. It shows these symbols over there, show the different missionary societies and the symbols, even in the United States. See, there's tons of them in Indian Territory and the upper Midwest. These are mountains that look like snake scales. This is Scythia, and these are the mountains that are like the foothills going into the Himalayas. Himalayas will be way over here, and this is the Silk Route. The Caspian Sea would be over here. Russia proper would be over here. This is one of the, I don't know whether it's Tajikistan or Kurdistan, Fui. I can't think of the name of it now. But at any rate, this is one of the Muslim ex-Soviet republics now. And this is a lake and water coming. And this is really early color. This is probably 400-year-old color.
The globes that nearly cover the tops of the shelves and cabinets are a recent addition to the collection, and they span an amazing number of years.
This is an extraordinarily good condition late 19th century American globe. And it was made in Boston. And they have the four legs with a stretcher, and it holds up a metal ring called a meridian. It has the various degrees, north and south, and then the degrees around the equator are on this equator ring or horizon ring. And they also had the months of the year, and with the months of the year, the astrological signs, and has the forms, Libra's the scales, and so on.
In the mix, you will find globes of various colors, globes that were used to train pilots during World War II. Some depict star formations and the moonscape. All are precious and fragile.
This is a globe by James Wilson, the first U.S. globe maker, and it's from the 1830s. And I bought it at auction from photographs, and I'm not positive that it's restorable. It's a 13-inch globe, which is really an unusual size. Of course, it's terrestrial, of the Earth. And it's an original stand, which is intact. But you can see here, this plaster is very, very fragile. It's amazing that the worst thing that happened is the paper just came off.
There are globe banks, hanging globes that were popular in the early American classroom, and toy and whimsical globes, and globes that serve practical purposes.
I have other globe lamps, of course they're wired and so on, but this one actually holds kerosene. So that makes it about, it couldn't be later than the 30s, I wouldn't think.
Tucked in among the maps and globes are hundreds of pictures, prints, documents, and rare books. Each one is part of a tapestry of historical fact and artistry.
I haven't found any reference to this particular thing. It's unusual depiction of him. It's almost, I've forgotten what they call it, a mezzotent, but it's less for actual look than it is, to make him certain style. I'm a big Thomas Jefferson fan, and I would probably part with it, but
These prints and articulate works span several generations and represent many artistic styles.
This is one of my favorite prints because it's Thomas Moran, who was a wonderful artist, and also it's the Northern Pacific Railroad going to Yellowstone. This is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. And this is a pretty scarce piece. I think the painting was like 8 by 12 feet.
Murray says the print represents the large murals that grace the walls of our train stations. Hall's may be a small dot on modern maps, but it's huge in the antiquities trade. This is where the old gets help from the new.
We set up a website several years ago, and that has made a big difference. We already had people coming who were serious collectors and dealers from Australia, from various places. If they came to the United States, they would make an effort to come here. But this enabled us to reach people in really out-of-the-way places. We've sold to probably 25 different countries. And one month recently, or maybe it was just a week, we sold more things out of the country than we did in this country.
Murray has also hosted collectors who have traveled here from such places as Germany, Italy, and the Philippines.
Some things I really wish I hadn't sold because, number one, they've gone up in value just astronomically. I figured that, well, knock on wood, that since I have been collecting for 40 years, that probably it's average about 10% a year in appreciation. I'm just guessing. And the better things, maybe more than that. There was a map that I bought at that shop in Oxford in 1964, and I finally sold it 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't really want. I had it on display, just as an example of a map that one of the first maps I had bought, and I had paid, I'm not sure, but somewhere between 25 cents and 50 cents for the map. And a really good client had flown down in here in his jet from Chicago, and he'd brought some friends, and this one was actually one of his German partners. And the German wanted this map that showed California as an island, which is the one I'm talking about that was inexpensive. And so I looked it up at that time, and it was like $400. And so I sold to him for less than that, like $350. So I'd gone from 50 cents to $350. Well, I looked the other day, that map is now going for $650, and I paid less than 50 cents for it. So since people are really interested in what the value is of things, it's just staggering what some of these things have done.
Murray says he buys 3 items for every one he sells, so the inventory rarely thins. Aside from the business, the real value of these treasures lies in their history and the artistic heritage they represent.
I have a map that's from a Ptolemaic atlas of Scythia. It's about, I bought it from a good friend in London years ago, and it's from sometime between 1487 and 1509. So it's right around 1500, perhaps a little bit earlier than 1500. So it's in, if it is pre-1500, then it's called incunabula, which means it comes from the first few decades of printing. And that's, it's kind of hard. And it has original color, or early color on it. And was printed on, of course, that was handmade, laid paper at that time, which will be here long after this modern wood pulp paper is long gone.